Imagine someone gave you a machine that could produce $100,000 every single year, forever. Would you know how to keep it alive? Dave and Marc thought they did. 37 years later, it was gone. Not because it broke, because every month, money showed up. If that machine belonged to you, what would you watch? The money coming out, or the machine producing it? Dave and Marc watched the money. I probably would have too. Every month, $10,000 arrived, exactly on time. Again, again, again. So if the payment never changed, what did? When I first looked at this story, I thought the answer was obvious. Two brothers inherit $2 million, spend a little too much, and eventually run out. Except, the more I looked at it, the less that explanation worked. They weren't watching the wrong number, they were watching the wrong system. And once you see it, you'll find the same system hiding inside your own money. Most people think an inheritance is money. Lauren left Dave and Marc $2 million, but that's not really what they inherited. For 40 years, Lauren had quietly built something that could produce money. Every paycheck strengthened it. Every reinvested dividend strengthened it. Every market crash she survived gave it time to recover. By the time she died, the portfolio was worth $2 million. At a smooth 5% real return, it could produce about $100,000 a year without shrinking. That was the inheritance, not just the $2 million, the machine behind it. 6 weeks after Lauren's funeral, Dave and Marc sat at her kitchen table. Dave was 31, Marc was 29. Dave handled the paperwork. Marc was happy to let him. They weren't reckless. They weren't planning sports cars or private jets. They had one completely reasonable question. How much can we take? Marc suggested $10,000 a month. Dave opened a spreadsheet. $120,000 a year. The machine produced about $100,000. The gap was $20,000. Against a $2 million balance, that didn't feel dangerous. It was only 1%. And that's important. Their math wasn't wrong. Their question was. They asked, can we afford $20,000 more? They never asked, what does that $20,000 do to next year's machine? The first payment arrived, $10,000, perfect. The second month, another $10,000, perfect. The third, the fourth, the 12th, all perfect. That's what makes this trap so effective. The machine doesn't hide the problem by failing. It hides the problem by succeeding. At the end of year one, the investments had produced roughly $100,000. Dave and Marc had taken $120,000. The balance was only about $20,000 lower. On $2 million, barely noticeable. But the $20,000 wasn't the real problem. The real problem was what it could no longer produce. Next year, the machine had less capital, so 5% produced less income, which meant more of the next withdrawal had to come from the machine itself. Then it happened again, and again. The payment stayed constant. The damage compounded. 5 years later, Dave logged into the account. The balance was lower, not dramatically. He blamed the market. That explanation felt good because it meant nothing had to change. But I started looking somewhere else. If the payment was still $10,000 and the balance still looked large, what was actually deteriorating? The machine's capacity. With $2 million inside it, 5% produced $100,000. With $1.75 million, it produced $87,500. Same $10,000 monthly withdrawal. Bigger gap. That's when the problem finally became visible. Dave wasn't looking at a useless number. He was looking at an incomplete one. Balance tells you what the machine is worth. Capacity tells you what the machine can safely produce. Those are not the same thing. So the question isn't simply how much money is left. It's, is this system producing enough to support what I'm taking from it? Because if the answer is no, the machine can still look healthy for years. The payment isn't lying. It's just showing you the output, not what the output is costing you. 10 years after Lauren died, roughly $1.75 million remained. Still a fortune. Still enough to make both brothers feel safe. Still enough for Dave to answer Marc's occasional question, "Everything okay?" with an honest, "Yeah, we're fine." And technically, they were. That's what made the answer dangerous. After 20 years, roughly 1.34 million remained. The machine was producing far less than the brothers were taking. Yet the monthly transfers still arrived exactly as before. This is where human behavior takes over. A payment that arrives 10 years in a row stops feeling like a financial decision. It becomes normal. Then normal becomes expected. And once something feels normal, reducing it feels like losing something you already own. So the brothers didn't need to deny a spreadsheet. They only needed to keep living the life the spreadsheet had already made familiar. By year 30, only about 670,000 remained. At 5%, that produces roughly $33,000 a year. They were still withdrawing $120,000. Now almost 3/4 of every dollar they took had to come from the machine itself. And yet from the outside, the routine looked almost identical. $10,000 every month, right on time. The machine was consuming itself and still looked like it was working. So how long could that possibly continue? And this is where Lauren's plan had a second weakness. She left the brothers the machine. She never left them instructions for running it. She also left them the family home. Dave wanted to keep it. Marc needed liquidity. Neither was wrong. But there was no reserve for buying one brother out. No rule for what happened when they disagreed. So circumstances made the decision for them. They sold. And that's when I realized something. Money doesn't need rules when everything goes according to plan. It needs rules for when life doesn't. Lauren had spent 40 years building assets, but the operating system for those assets existed only in her head. When Lauren disappeared, so did the operating system. Maybe $2 million simply wasn't enough. Except, the same thing has happened to fortunes 50 times larger. Cornelius Vanderbilt died in 1877 with one of the largest private fortunes in America. Nearly a century later, a widely cited family account described a gathering of more than 100 descendants where none was a millionaire. It's tempting to blame the heirs, but that's too easy. A bigger machine doesn't fix a missing operating system. It just takes longer to notice. This is where my original explanation finally fell apart. I thought Dave and Marc's mistake was overspending. It wasn't. Overspending was the symptom. Their real mistake was never comparing two numbers, what the machine could produce and what they were asking it to pay. That's it. And it doesn't just apply to inheritance. Retirement accounts, rental properties, businesses, anything you expect to support you has a capacity. You can strengthen it. You can ask less of it. You can give it time to recover. But none of that matters if you never measure its capacity in the first place. Dave and Marc never measured it, so the machine kept doing exactly what they'd taught themselves to expect. $10,000 every month, right on time, for 37 years. Dave was 68 now. Marc was 66. Then one month, the last payment arrived. Marc asked the question he'd been asking for years. Everything okay? And for the first time, Dave couldn't say, "Yeah, we're fine." After 37 years of teaching them they could depend on it, the machine had nothing left to give. When I first came across their story, I thought the lesson was obvious. Don't spend too much. I was wrong. The real lesson is more uncomfortable. You can do everything that feels normal and still slowly destroy the system that makes normal possible. So the next time money shows up, don't only ask, "How much did I get?" Ask, "What happened to the machine that created it?" And maybe there's an even simpler way to think about it. Did today's payment cost you a piece of tomorrow? Lauren spent 40 years building the machine. Dave and Marc spent 37 years using it. The machine never warned them. It just kept paying. Until it couldn't. They thought they were spending the income. They were spending the machine. That's the Ben factor.